This will be the first meeting of the Higher Ed Subcommittee of Appropriations. Since this is our first meeting of this legislative term, let me take a minute and let the members of the committee introduce themselves, and then I've got a few folks who are guests here that I'd like to recognize. But let me start over here with Representative from Athens.
Mike Chokus, District 134th, Sumter County.
And the Vice Chairman of the Committee. I'm Earl Earhart, representative from the 36th District, that's Cobb County.
Tom Rice, got a portion of Gwinnett, portion of Fulton.
John Yates, District 73, Spalding, Henry, and Fayette.
Hancock, District 113, Walton, Oregon,
Something else.
You got a little bit of everything there. All right. And just so everyone knows, Scott Blunt is the budget analyst for the House Budget Office. He's here and will be with us every time. All right. Now, as usual, if you try to introduce everyone, I'm going to leave someone out, but I have several cards of some of the. I always like to introduce our university presidents when they do come. And Mr. Daniel, if there's any regents here, if you'll let me know, I always like to recognize the regents themselves. But I want to introduce. Put my glasses on. Linda Blaken from Armstrong State. She's here as our president. Thank you for coming. We're very glad to have you. Is this your first time with us?
No, actually, I was here last year.
Okay, well, good. Then we're certainly glad to have you. And then someone I know it's his first time because he's just gotten here, Dr. Ricardo Aziz with the Medical College. Glad to have you, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. It is the first time, so I'm in class right now.
We're thrilled, and it's always a pleasure to have our presidents of our university institutions here. And I also want to introduce Dr. Susanna Baxter. She's president of the Georgia Independent College Association. She's here. Susanna, are you? There you are. Thank you. And she's fairly new as well. That's why I'm introducing her. A lot of associations represented. Anybody in particular wants to be introduced, just gotta raise your hand. I'll introduce you. All right, now we get on to the more serious side of the equation. This is the first meeting on the FY11 supplemental budget. So what I've asked each of the agencies that come under the purview of this committee to do is to come in and effectively go through the tracking sheet, the specifics of the budget. The Chancellor did an excellent job. The Commissioner did an excellent job, and Mr. Cannell did a good job. Those are the three agencies under this budget unit. So we really don't need to go in depth into a lot of the the whys and the historicals and the wherefores. Let's concentrate on what's on the page, where the numbers actually reside. So with that, I'm going to move right into that, and I believe for the regents, it's going to be Tom Daniel and Usha Ramkins for the regents. They'll walk us through that. Everybody has a tracking sheet on the committee. Oh, I'm sorry, Len Walker, Chairman of Higher Education, also on this committee, has joined us. Glad to have you, sir. Okay, Tom Daniel. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Tom Daniel. I'm with the University System. Usha Ramachandran is with me. Usha, as you know, is the Chief Fiscal Officer for the University System. Mr. Rob Watts, our Chief Operating Officer, is here, and Dr. Spencer from our Academic Affairs Office. We're grateful for this opportunity and appreciate you and the other members of the committee allowing us to appear here today. Dr. Steve Wrigley is here with the University of Georgia, and Dr. Wrigley, if you'd introduce the B people.
Thank you very much. Glad you're here.
And Dean Sheehan from Georgia Tech, they have several units in the B's. And Dean, if you'd introduce your people, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Daniel. I have with me today Mr. Tom Horton with the Georgia Tech Research Institute, and Mr. Stephen Fleming here with the Enterprise Innovation Institute, which is also ATDC and supplies within his operation.
Thank you for joining us.
And Julie Curling has some, the Medical College of Georgia also has some B units. Ms. Curling will introduce her guests.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we have Dennis Schreiber from MCG Health and Mr. Bill Bose from MCG Financial.
Tom, I'm going to ask you to step back one half step, and you're talking about B and A budgets. You want to explain? We've got new members of the committee and that type of thing. If you'll just give a very quick synopsis of the difference in what the B budget unit is, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Very quickly, when I refer to the B units, those are the activities in the University System of Georgia budget, which the Georgia General Assembly allocates dollars specifically to that unit. The Cooperative Extension Service, the Agricultural Experiment Stations, the Advanced Technology Development Center, the Economic Labs at Georgia Tech, the Medical College of Georgia Hospital. Dr. Lamar Beach is here with the Georgia Public Libraries. Those are activities which funds are appropriated directly by the Georgia General Assembly and are used for those activities. That's the B unit. What I refer to as the A unit is sometimes called resident instruction. It's the lump sum appropriation which you and your colleagues graciously give to the Board of Regents, which the Board of Regents in turn uses to allocate to the teaching functions. It's where we run the 35 public colleges and universities.
Thank you, Chancellor Daniel.
And you are investing in public higher education.
Over $5 billion.
Investment's an investment.
Thank you, Tom.
We introduced Dr. Beach here, and
Lamar.
Ms. Ramachandran will be delighted to go, if you want to go section by section. This is other day, one of my colleagues, one of the presidents said, well, Tom, one of your dreams has come true. And I said, what is that? They said, well, you've always wanted a budget year where there was no controversy. So there's one consistent trait about these tracking sheets, Mr. Chairman. There are no additions.
Yeah, let's don't jinx it with saying there's no controversy. I tend to agree.
We'll be glad to respond to any questions.
Let's do it that way then. Instead of going through all the different B units as one, let's go one by one. If anybody has a question on one, it's probably easier than going all the way back. If that's all right with you, Ms. Ramshaw. Okay. And the committee members, if once she starts with a ATDC, and if you've got a question there, then we'll just stop it and ask the questions. So, Busha, when you're ready.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first item is on page number 5. At the top of the page, line 40.1, this is the Advanced Technology Development Center. This is at Georgia Tech. They have a reduction of $325,000, and that is a 4% reduction for the 11 amended. All of the units, just so you know, all of the units of the university system, in accordance with the budget instructions, submitted reduction plans at 4% and 6% at the start of the fiscal year. And so what you're seeing here basically are the governor's recommendations that range from 4% to an 8% reduction for different entities.
Okay.
The next item is
I have a question.
We have a question.
Yes.
Just real quick, when you talk about on personal, you say personal service and operating expenses. I don't have any idea how many people this actually represents in terms of these personal services numbers. I see.
I believe we have an overall
Do we have that?
net number in the line item in the governor's budget. I mean, we can get it from the individual B unit as well. How many people?
The overall operation of the enterprise innovation includes ATDC, that line item, so all of them, that's where about 130.
And just overall, the reduction in overall position is in the at the end in the budget summary. It just shows you. I believe it was at 50,000 and it went down to 42. Was that in the overall system?
Overall, the university system has 41,680 positions
Currently, and in the previous year it was.
The previous year was 42,304 to the governor's document.
Okay.
Said the 50,000.
Okay, so there's a discrepancy in that. So it is in here. I can't get the page, but we can go into that in a little more detail. Okay. All right. Any more? Okay. Go ahead, Bruce.
All right. The next item is line number 40.2. This is the Agricultural Experiment Station at the University of Georgia. This is very, very important for the state as part of the Land Grant Commission and the extension activities of the University of Georgia. And they have a reduction of $1.45 million, and this is a 4% reduction as well.
Any questions? Don't see any.
All right, the next item is the Cooperative Extension Service. This is line 40.4. This is also related to the Land Grant Commission at the University of Georgia, and they have a reduction as well of 4%, and that's $1.22 million.
Let me. Do you have any? I'd kind of like to get an idea where that's going to manifest itself in those cuts.
Come on up, Dean. This is Dean Scott, Painter, College of Agriculture.
Come on up here, Dean, if you don't mind, please. And the question was, can you give us a little idea what what those cuts, the 1.2 million, and how you're going to stretch that across the system?
Yes, we have already taken a 22% budget cut over the last 2 years, and so essentially all of our flexibility has been removed from our system. That'll all be done with personnel layoffs.
Okay.
And primarily laying off faculty, since at the University of Georgia we're not able to lay off, primarily with staff. So
Staff.
we can't lay off faculty.
Okay, that's what I want.
Can
Question.
I just quickly- I mean, if I'm not mistaken, is a place like Gwinnett down to like 1 or 2 agents effectively? I mean, some of the larger areas in the Cooperative Extension Service, I think, you're going to go to 0, my guess is, on some of these areas. Is that right?
Yes, sir. We have developed a plan to reorganize extension where we will be removing agents from 4-H, agriculture, and family consumer science agents from a variety of our offices. Just as an example, when we were done, 33 counties will no longer have an agricultural agent. Only 113 offices will have an ag agent, 90 will have a 4-H agent, and 36 will have a family consumer sciences agent. So a significant downsizing of the system.
Okay, if you would please provide the committee with a with that summary of and perhaps could you make it a comparative where we were with agents in maybe like a 3-year summary of we had so many agricultural extension service agents in so many counties, so many 4-H agents in so many counties, so that we can see the consequences of what these actions are.
I should have most of that with me.
Okay, you don't have to. I'm not saying you have to have it right this moment. If you'll just provide that as a summary for the committee, that would be helpful for us. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Dean.
All right, so the next item is line 40.5. This is a forestry cooperative extension, also at the University of Georgia, and they have a reduction of, I'll tell you what percent, I think it's 4%. It's 5% reduction for the forestry cooperative extension. And they also have a reduction in people and taking positions.
I got it.
Any questions? Thank you.
Line 40.6 is the forestry research, and this is a reduction of 109,000, which is a reduction of 4%. Let's see. And the next item is line 40.8, which is the Georgia Tech Research Institute, and they have a reduction of 244,000, which is also a 4% reduction, similar to many we've seen so far.
Let me ask you a quick question there, because generally those funds are accompanied by federal matches, are they not? Is there a federal consequence to this particular cut, or is this staff, or can you give us an idea?
Not directly, sir. Most of our 97% of our funding is external, and much of that is federal. We don't have a lot of programs that require a match. What this does is cuts our ability to refresh our equipment and internal support items we need to sustain that work over time.
Okay, so it doesn't directly affect any external funds.
In fact, we've been on roll for 2 or 3 years. We've added 300 plus jobs here in the state in the last couple of years. What we're concerned about is the long-term impact on that sustained growth with the new hires.
Fair enough. He was just giving you a name. Anybody else have anything on that? Thank you very much.
Line 40.9 is for the Marine Institute, and this is also a reduction of 4% at 31,000 to 39. And then turning the page over. Line 40.10 is the Marine Resources Extension Center, and this has a reduction of, I think it's 451. And that amount is 65,206. Next we have the Medical College of Georgia Hospitals and Clinics, and they have a reduction of 1.26 million, and that is also a 4% reduction for this line item.
don't see any questions.
Where's that?
That was the Medical College, Georgia. It's at 40.11. That's it?
Oh, there it is, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Line 40.12 is the public libraries, and they have a reduction of $1.4 million, which is also a reduction of 4%. And then line,
Can I go back a minute?
Certainly, you got a question.
yes.
On 4111 on Medical College, when you saw operating expenses, I just want to get some indication of how that plays out. Talk about clinics. Is this, what, are these teaching positions, or are these services provisions, or
Hold
whatever?
on, Dennis. This is Dennis Romer.
That B budget is largely used to support is used to support our medical education, for graduate medical education. We have over 400 residents, so given the state's initiatives to expand medical education, that percentage forces us to make further operating reductions. And our staffing levels in the hospital and clinics is already 25th percentile of that level. It's been there for the last 10 years.
Can I answer your question?
I think so. I'll come back. I'll catch up with you then.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. The next item is line 40.13, and this is for the special funding initiatives. There are about 10 initiatives in the university system that this provides funding for, and it's a total reduction of $674,000.
Did you provide a list of those this time?
Yeah, I have that.
If you'll provide the committee with a list of those, as you know, I always have a special interest in special initiatives.
Yes, we brought that just for you.
Yeah, I thought you might have. Thank you. We should just let the committee get a chance to take a look at that. Yeah. I'll tell you what, we'll come back to the special funding initiatives if you don't mind. You can go back down to the central office and then talk about that and come.
Okay. All right. The Region Central Office has three adjustments on line 40.14. The first is a small adjustment. It's a reduction of $19,000 for the workers' comp premium, and you will see that line in some of the other entities as well. The workers' comp adjustments were made by OPB based on what they got from the DOAS, Department of Risk Management. It's about the change in premium related to the cost of medical, costs for the program. And so that's a reduction of $19,275. We also have our share of the reduction in the system office, which is on line 40.14.2. And that's also a 4% reduction, which calls for elimination of about 3 positions. Then the next item is the reduction for the SRAB, which is the Supplemental Education.
Well, you can stop there. You know I'm going to ask you a question on that one. Okay, that's two different types of scholarships. That's an optometry scholarship and that's a diversity scholarship, correct?
Yes.
Which one is being cut out?
Both of them are being affected. So I'm looking at what the SRAB folks sent us. As you know, this is the SRAB is attached. I mean, so the money goes through us to the SRAB, so we don't really decide.
I understand that.
Where they should cut or what they should cut. So we just pass on the plans, just the way,
But the effect is still that's probably one less scholarship somewhere at that level,
they're
correct?
reducing, yes, sir. They're reducing $22,000 for the doctoral scholars, which would be about one person.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're also reducing funding for the optometry and osteopathic medicine by $22,000.
So that's probably one each of the optometry and osteopathic. One each. All right, and I realize that is not your that was not in your recommendation. If there's someone here from the Office of Planning and Budget, I'd love to hear what the thinking on that was this year. I didn't. Who is our liaison with OPB? Do we have? Hi. Hi, Sarah.
I'm the policy analyst at the Office of Planning and Budget, and I work on the university system budget.
Okay, can you come up here and tell us why we're going to cut those scholarships?
The information that I can give you is that was a region budget request, so they did submit that to us. And I don't have the plan in front of me right now. It's right here. And this is what was submitted to us, and we felt that this plan was something that SREB could do, so we went ahead with the 4% reduction.
Okay, well that's different. Now let me make sure I get which one, because it's always been the Regents hasn't suggested those cuts. So this year it's the Regents suggesting a cut in the SRAB scholarships, correct?
No, they don't suggest any cuts.
Well, that's what she just said.
Well, it came through us in their request.
Okay, so you told them to request to cut the scholarship.
We had sent out budget instructions for 4 different reduction levels, 4, 6, and 8, and they had sent us plans for all the programs, including B Unit, including SRAB, at all of those 3 different reductions.
But that's not a 4%. That's a okay.
It should be a 4% reduction.
Okay. So but there's a lot of other scholarships. Okay, members of the committee, I think we all thank you very much. I understand. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but we're going to talk about these things. Representative Huckabee.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, at the right time, for the central office to provide me their staffing level, how many staff people they have, and the general breakdown of what areas they're assigned to.
Sure, we can get you that.
Thank
You
you.
want to go back to the special funding initiative?
I think so. We'll do that. But before we leave the SREB, I'd like to know what the percentage level that get, and this time, since it seems to be, give me an idea of all the scholarships that are provided in that sense through the Regent system, and I want to know if they were cut at a similar 4% level. So it just seems that one always gets set right out there to get chopped up. I'm trying to understand that. Okay, now we can go back to the special funding initiatives.
So on your sheet, you see the listing of all the special funding initiatives in the university system. Questions on any of them?
Any members of the committee have any questions about what the role or the program of these are? Anybody want to? You can take a look at these and.
I'll do a couple of lines about
Sure.
them if you think-
I don't know, unless there's a major committee members. What's your preference? Do you want to hear the specifics of these ones?
I have a question about one specific one.
Sure, certainly, Representative Huckabee.
Galileo.
Yes, sir.
There's some rumblings and concern about the effect of this cut, of further cuts in Galileo. What's going to be the impact of this $114,000?
Galileo, is a fantastic repository of online information. It's a collection of all databases and information that goes through, the school systems, the university system, and also the public in the state of Georgia. So it's a wonderful, wonderful program. Over the last few years, with all the reductions, clearly this program has also been stressed, just like every other program. And the reality is that the cost of doing business for them has been going up, just because the cost of subscriptions for the online journals, the magazines, and all of the things that they have to do, that cost has been going up. The money has been going down. So this is clearly a challenge for them. So what they will have to do, I guess, is to.
Lamar can help. I think we need.
Certainly.
There is a cut in the Department of there is a recommended reduction in the Department of Education's budget that has an impact. It is not this.
Yes, this will have an impact. There are a number of partners, the public schools, the university system, public libraries, that have supported this in a collaborative fashion, so that every citizen, every public school child can get access to all these high quality journals and documents that they need for their study and research. And very honestly, if the schools decide to pull out of this is going to pull one leg out of a three-legged stool that this program has operated on for years and years and years. The concern is that all of these school children who are school students who don't have access in the schools to these research materials are suddenly going to descend on the public libraries. We'd love to have the service and the programs and offer the service as best we can, but very honestly, all our public libraries are strapped in terms of numbers of computers, bandwidth on their high-speed internet lines, and having all of that demand for service flop over to another agency such as the public library is really going to stress our libraries to a very significant point. And I think it really does diminish the the value, I mean, it doesn't diminish the value, but it diminishes the access of those school students for this high-quality research material that you don't get free off the internet. This is the high-quality stuff. This is the access to journals and research materials that you can't get any other way except these subscriptions. But Galileo is the preeminent cooperative program like this in the entire United States. Every other state looks to this, but it relies on the partners that are involved in this program from the beginning. Thank you, sir.
Does that get what you need, Representative? Okay. Any other questions on that? Is that a question, Mr.?
We were just,
Sure.
Is there any, thank you, Mr. Chairman, is there any way that you can access this from home?
Yes. Yes.
So it's already,
right.
So
yeah.
the students don't have to descend on the public library?
You can access it from home, but you do need internet service and a fairly decent computer. So there are some basic requirements that you have to have, but yes, you can receive a password and you can use this from home. But there's a huge part of the population that does not have very good access to this at home in the best of all worlds.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Any other questions on the special funding initiatives for USHA? Don't see any. I guess, come on down. I guess we're at the Research Consortium.
Yes, Research Consortium, yes, sir. 940.15, there are 3 adjustments to the Research Consortium program. All 3 are reductions. And we have this one as well. What makes up
Okay, thank you.
the Research Consortium program.
No, it's in reduction. Oh, no, that was Oxford. It's not in there. It was never, we took it out. Got several of those. I'm sorry, just go ahead.
So the first item in the Research Consortium is the removal of the funds for the eminent scholar. The General Assembly had appropriated funds of $750,000 in tobacco money for an eminent scholar in the university system, but that is not, it's not being funded anymore. The next item is a deduction for the GRA program itself, and that's $560,000. And then the advanced communication program also has a reduction of $289,000. So all 3 have reductions.
Are these reductions in anticipation of the 12 budget, which transfers?
Transfers to the economic development.
These are staff level changes, the duplication, or what's the? Are these anticipated because of that transfer, or is that just they stand alone?
Well, we know the eminent scholar money is out in the 11 budget and in the 12 budget.
Okay.
Which we know. The $560,000 reduction, I believe is a standard reduction. It is not being transferred in 11, it's being transferred in 12.
12. Okay, and then the operating expenses, personal services is
In 11.
11. Okay. Any questions on that? Representative Chokas.
On the eminent scholar program, is that a match, and if so, has the money been raised locally?
Yes, Mike Cassidy's yours.
Yes, sir. That particular eminent scholar is one that's administered under the Georgia Research Alliance program. That is a recruitment process. There are matching dollars available from the institution.
From the institutions?
Representative Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of a general question. My understanding of the Eminent Scholar Program is that generally an eminent scholar that comes here has the opportunity to increase the level of sponsored funds dramatically based upon contracts, grants, and so on, which would be made possible by the presence of that eminent scholar in the system. Isn't there any kind of an offset here in terms of the in other words, if you're going to bring in an eminent scholar, isn't there any expected return on that investment in terms of sponsored funds?
Yes, sir. The last time that we took a very close look at the one average, there's 62 eminent scholars in the mix today. They return about 5 to 1 for the state's investment. So they do bring, we're recruiting at a very, very high level with our member institutions. They're bringing top-notch scientists from around the country. They're bringing others with them. Not to mention there's 62 eminent scholars today, they oversee an overall enterprise of 1,600 associated investigators, researchers, postdoctoral researchers. And they generate this last year $200 million of externally funded activity, principally from the federal government. The federal government's going to invest those dollars somewhere. It's competitively awarded. We want to bring more of it to the state, and we have to have the top talent here to do that job.
This is an obvious question. So why wouldn't you take sponsored funds and invest in this program yourself? Maybe I don't understand how it works, but I would.
Well, of course, these are for endowments.
Yeah, right. I understand. Okay.
Each of the individuals.
Okay. I'll get more of that later.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mike. Let me just Mike. I'm sorry. One thing that might be relevant for the members of the committee is to get an idea of the depth of the Eminent Scholar Program. If you could give us an idea of where these Eminent Scholars are in residence today, give us just a summary of the program, what institutions they're now a part of, and that type of thing. So that, not right now, but just if you could get that to the committee, I think like a breakdown of which universities and that type of thing. Certainly, Representative Huckabee.
Which field are we trying to recruit this eminent scholar now?
Our focus for the past several years has really been the biosciences, which of course has been identified as a strategic industry for the state. This particular chair would be in bio-nanotechnology. And I won't go into too much depth, but it's capitalizing on investments that have been made at Georgia Tech in nanotechnology and applying them to life science research.
So this one would be at Tech as well.
This particular one is for Georgia Tech. Now, we do have a few, sort of full disclosure, we have a couple of endowments in the trust fund right now. The practice has been that when these are appropriated, they go into a trust fund so that they do not lapse. It can take sometimes up to 2 years to complete a recruitment. We have some capacity to address our current needs. Our concern in 11, more so in the 12 budget, is that we're going to drain the pipeline out, and it's going to make it very complicated to continue on that.
Okay.
But we'll get you that list.
Thank you. I think the committee. Yeah, that's good. All right. Continuation.
The next item is the Skidaway Institute of Oceanography, and this is on line 40.16. It's a reduction of $72,000, and all of this is for one position, and it's a reduction of 5.2%, unlike the 4% we've seen so far in some of the others. The next line is line 40.17, which is a teaching program, which is the formula funds, which is the sum of the state appropriations at all of our 35 colleges and universities. And so under this program, you see a couple of changes. The first is the loss of the stimulus funds of $23 million. We thought we had this when we started the year, but then we didn't have it. The money's gone, and that's the stimulus money. So that's a real cut for the institutions. The second item is the adjustment for the workers' comp premiums, and that's an increase of $401,408. And again, this is set by the Department of Administrative Services based on medical costs and what that's trending like. The university system does a very good job, by the way, on comprehensive loss prevention and training people and reducing workers' comp incidents. So we do a very good job with that. The next item is an adjustment for telecommunications expenses, and this is a reduction of $311, which I understand is for the Agri-Drama program. So that's just one item there. Then the next item is the big reduction. It's a reduction of 6% for all of our institutions, and that's the almost $102 million reductions for our institutions. Now, as we said before, all institutions submitted reduction plans at the 4% and at the 6% level. We had been operating at a 4%, and with the recommendation, if not goes up from a 4% to a 6% reduction for all of our institutions. Clearly a challenge at the time of increasing enrollment, but the presidents have come up with the plans, and they will have to implement the plans at the 6% level. And to give you a thumbnail sketch of what's in the plans, a lot of it has to do with a reduction of positions, freezing of positions, firing people, and that efforts to increase efficiency, to reduce hours of operations in libraries and other services, closing the campus, for these 2 weeks between Christmas and New Year's. So we try to capture savings where possible, to look at savings in energy, and also to do things like merge divisions where possible and to come up with structural changes that would yield savings. Institutions will also have to put on hold any expansion programs. They have to delay new programs since the money is not there. Deferred maintenance, always a big challenge in the university system just because of the extent of facilities we have. And so to the backlog of projects, we will have to add some more because, obviously we can't, we don't have the money to do some of those very important things. And then there will also be a reduction in our general operating costs. Whether it is cutting back on library materials or eliminating, subscriptions for journals and things like that. I think all of those will be affected. And also to some extent, institutions have, set aside the carry forward funds to help with this from 2010 and 2011. So
Okay.
painful, but obviously we have to do what we need to do.
Questions? It's a big part of the. Don't see any. Continue.
All right. On line 40.18 is the VetMed experiment station, and they also have a reduction of 4%, and that's 110,000. And that's also for person services and operating expenses, as you've seen in most of the other lines. The next item is line 40.19, which is the VetMed teaching hospital, and this is a reduction of 37,719, which, by the way, is an 8% reduction, unlike the usual 4 and the 6s that you've seen so far. So this is a reduction of 8%, and you see what the amount is. And again, this is for position.
One position?
I believe it is one position, or it's a delay of several positions.
Okay.
The next three are attached to us, Mr. Chairman, the Georgia Military College, GPTC, and the Georgia Cancer Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
And you see reductions reflected in all three of those as well. The Georgia Military College has a reduction of 145,000, and a small increase for workers' comp of 15,000. So that's a change of 4.7% for them. GPTC has.
Did anybody have a question on the reduction for the prep school and the junior college? Doesn't seem to be right now. So.
All right. For the Georgia Public Telecommunications Division, line 40.21, the best item is an adjustment for workers' comp premium, and that's going up marginally 2017. I can also speak to that.
Okay.
I can speak to PPD, sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
We have a 4.7% cut that will require us to eliminate 3 positions.
Introduce yourself for the committee members that may not have had a chance.
I'm the president of Georgia Public Broadcasting.
That's right. I would have done that for you, but I thought you'd like to.
I should have. Again, a 4.7% cut for amended 11. That is a elimination of 3 positions. On top of that, we have a significant number of operating expenses that will go down. So between the loss of the 3 positions and operating expenses, that reaches about the 560 of our total, and then along with the workers' comp, and we're also going to have to adjust our telecommunications expense.
Any questions, Todd? Thank you. Director. Okay, Usha.
The last one is the Georgia Cancer Coalition, also an entity attached to the university system, and you see a whole host of reductions for them, from the Distinguished Cancer Clinician Program of 385,000, Regional Cancer Coalition of 81,000, the Georgia Core Program of 16, the Tissue Banking of 100, and operating expenses of 73,000. So all reductions also at the Cancer Coalition.
Thank you, Usha. Any questions from members of the committee with respect to the presentation by the Board of Regents? Go ahead, Representative Rice.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm just going back to this page. Basic. And you're going to have to excuse my ignorance here because I'm really not sure. Looking at the teaching position on the programs is a 6% reduction overall. I guess the question is what, does this combine with the other reductions? The overall reduction in total funds is at what percentage?
The overall percentage would be at close to 6%, yes.
Close to 6%.
That's the lion's share of the money at 6%.
The teaching is the biggest section, so that's 6%.
Okay, and these were the targets you were given?
We were given targets of 4 and 6%, yes.
Okay. I guess my question really has to do with the allocation of the reduction and I mean, just how's that done? Like you said, the presidents of the college do these allocations, correct?
Yes.
For each one of these organizations?
You're looking at the top page or the second?
Deans. Let's look at this top page.
Top page, okay. Top page
But and they're not. Some of them are. Yeah, I understand they're not colleges and so on. But the point is that I guess what I'm saying is that if you have a target of X amount, is the $101 million kind of a plug number that says, okay, if you take all these others and
no. What you're seeing on the top page, these are the actual governor's recommendations for the reductions to all the various programs. So that's what you're seeing on this page.
okay,
On page 2 is a breakout of the 101 million, which is the top line.
right.
So rather than just show you one line and say the 102.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
We wanted you to see what amount that will be by institution. So that's what's on page 2.
Okay.
So page 1 is the actual recommendations from the governor.
Okay.
And do you have, one of the things that might be instructive on this second page is the percentages per institution?
Yes, this is what you're seeing here is an across-the-board reduction, which is typical of strategy in prior years. What the board has done is across-the-board reductions for all institutions.
So you took this. Which number did you use to
6% reduction.
off of the standard allocation? Well, okay, so the allocation we discussed yesterday is the basis for this 6%. So 6% off of. Okay. Okay. So everybody, there's no change in this. This is directly off of the sheet that we dealt with yesterday. Okay, good enough. All right. Any questions on that? That gives me. I'm going to pass out to the committee a copy of some information the Regents did a very good job on, I thought, and we can talk about this at a later time. But this goes to the question of allocation, and the spreadsheet itself is. This is a question that Senator Staten asked the Chancellor while we were in our original hearing, and some questions I had followed up with respect on, and effectively I had asked the question: give me the very, very simple equation of the state allocation, or I'm sorry, the state funds expended per allocation by the Board of Regents per FTE. And as you know, this is generally worked out in April after we leave. The Regents themselves have the constitutional authority to do this. And you can see the list of the institutions. They're somewhat separated by the research institutions, the colleges, regional universities and colleges, and then the two-year institutions. But the first pink line is very much the indicative of the actual allocation per university and their per FTE. The last is non-state monies, the other total F funds, their special institutional fees and tuition. But I suspect we'll have a significant discussion on this during the 12 budget. I just wanted to lay it on the table for now so that you can see that allocation that they're talking about. And this allocation that she just mentioned is directly off this number in that center column. So if you had a certain state funding per FTE here, that was reduced by 6%, correct?
You actually see the 6% in the second column.
Oh, okay, same. That's the same number. I never got over to that side of the spreadsheet. That's good. Any questions there?
I do on that. And we went through this, when we went through it last year, Mr. Chairman, you talked about this, and we would just put a 6% number across every institution. And every institution is not the same. And is there any, what is the, I guess...
You can see that from the pink sheet.
Oh,
Some animals are more equal than others.
Very much so. But the question is in looking at it overall, and before, there's panic in the room, some institutions, because of either their programs offered or their student ratios, things in general, you might could take, they might need a 7%, whereas other institutions who need a little more because of higher percentage would take a 5%. We get this every year. We get just a straight across the board, every institution doing the same amount. And I understand, except for the FE units, how much they get. How much thought is going into that process? Instead of just saying, everybody give me your 6%, instead of saying, well, maybe you take, I'll just pick one at random here, Columbus State, this year, because they've got something, or there's something really going on, or they've had an influx, you can take, we may give you 5 this year, and yet one other one over here who's having something else going on for this year, they can take another part. Why do we just meet clear 6% and 10% or 8% or 4% and not look at it?
It was. Go ahead, Chancellor Dan.
Thank you. Those kinds of actions were being taken into consideration in the allocations process. When you give the lump sum appropriation to the Board of Regents, the Chancellor makes the recommendations to the Board of Regents for the allocations. That's where you would take that into consideration. So if we do get instructions to cut the budgets, those cuts are based on the decisions of the allocations. When the allocations are made, every institution wouldn't get the same.
Representative Collins, that's this pink line. That's the subjective line. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I understand that completely. I think we can talk about it later, but it's just...
I think it's time for this conversation. It's
something I want to continue the process.
That's why I brought it out. That's why we're going to begin this discussion. So, I didn't want to take too long on that, but I did want to bring that into the. All right. Any questions from the members of the committee? The only other thing we mentioned this for as we move forward, I want to begin to have the conversation with respect to, and this dovetails with the HOPE issues and that type of thing on the textbook issue. I know Ms. Robinson is working towards a presentation on electronic textbooks and hopefully the cost savings and that time. I know Georgia Public Television and Taya have done a lot of work on that, and I know others have a significant interest in this as well. So let's talk about that as we move forward. Okay. Anybody else? Thank you very much, Regents. Okay. The next section of this, I'm going to ask Commissioner Jackson of the Department of Technical College System of Georgia. I didn't go to DTAU that time. That's the first time I've actually caught myself on that. The tracking sheet, actually, ladies and gentlemen, I had, we can ask questions, but I had told Tim Cannell that there really wasn't a great deal in the 11 budget that on that. So if you have some questions on that, on Georgia Student Finance, but we'll spend a lot of time with Georgia Student Finance in the 12 budget, so that we can have some time with the Regents and with the technical colleges. I just brought these two in. So, Commissioner Jackson, you're on that, and Assistant Commissioner Gamage, or whatever you are, Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Our budget is very, very, very straightforward.
Yeah, it is.
The recommendations, as you can see, represent, by and large, 4% cuts across the board to our 4 programs. The previous governor held back 4% in our allocation to the agency, so we've been operating at this 4% reduction level since the beginning of the fiscal year. Planned on doing it. So we are operating at this level that these cuts represent here today in all 4 of the programs. In adult literacy, for adjustment on the workers' compensation. That's 46.1.1 is just the adjustment made statewide to all the workers' comp. And then you can see a reduction in funds for personal services of $534,536. That represents a reduction in positions, about 18 positions statewide for us. Some of those are actually, we're managing that with part-time positions that are managing the enrollment that we currently have. Unlike technical education, I'll talk about in a minute, we have not experienced the enrollment growth in adult education that we have in technical education. We remain fairly constant in our adult education enrollment. It is fairly level from the previous year, so the impact of this cut, while always difficult, we are managing it and primarily putting part-time instructors to replace full-time instructors when they are retiring or leaving for whatever reason. So we've been able to manage it. On the administration reduction, departmental administration, you can see again our workers' comp and then an adjustment to telecommunication expenses, and then the reduction of personal services, which is the major one at $313,593. That has represented a reduction for us of about 6 positions in the system office. We've been able to manage that with attrition and some retirements. The bottom line is we are operating as efficiently as I think we can with 96 positions in the system office now. We have some additional positions in the state office under federal funds, but we're operating at 96 positions. Under economic development, quick start and customized services, again, the adjustment for workers' comp, personal services of $532,000 is a significant cut to us at a very difficult time for quick start and the current level of training that we are doing for companies that have located there. Of course, as you know, in those training arrangements we have with new and expanding companies, we provide most of that training with contract trainers. We come from a stable of trainers available to us. It's slightly different with the Kia plant and the Kia suppliers, in that we have a number of full-time employees that we've had employed for that particular program. We have reduced our quick start staff by 7 in order to accommodate this cut. And we have cut some operating expenses as well to manage the cut this year. But we are meeting the requirement and the demand currently that Kia, NCR, and some of our other training programs that bring new jobs to Georgia. And the 7 positions and some operating expenses are the impact of this particular cut. And we're operating at that level. Of course, our big program is technical education. It is essentially, again, workers' comp and telecommunication adjustment. The big reduction is $11.2 million in our personal services to our colleges. This is the money that is distributed to the colleges. The vast majority of it is our allocation, like the university system, we make to the colleges. We have managed this reduction by, it's a challenge with the enrollment growth. You know, we've had a 28.5% FT enrollment growth over the past year. That represents 190,000 plus technical education students. We have managed that with a tuition increase to offset our budget reductions, as well as moving from full-time faculty to part-time faculty. The alarming number there is that 72% of our faculty is currently part-time faculty. We can do that for a short period of time, but we cannot sustain a college system faculty part-time ratio of 72%. That would be unacceptable for our accreditation agencies, but we can manage, it's the only way we can manage and meet the requirement. We are increasing our class size in those programs that will allow that. We're putting as many bodies in the classroom as we can. Over time, that will affect the quality of our instruction. But right now, we're meeting the requirement.
Yeah, you got a question, Commissioner, if you don't mind?
Commissioner, just for a second, in your budget address, I think you said that your credit hour charge at this point, is it $45 an hour? Did I remember that? Is that the uplifted charge at this point in time, or is that?
That is the current rate that we are providing. It was $40 last year.
That's what I meant, yeah.
We raised it to $45 this year, and I can give you notice we'll probably raise it to $50.
How many courses how many credit hours does an average student take?
15 is full, 15 hours is full student load. And I must tell you, most of our students right now, we've had a large increase in full-time students. Part of that's driven by the economic downturn in students who are returning to school to get new training for a new line of work. And those students who are out of work can become full-time. In a traditional economy, a growing and a successful economy, we tend to have students that work and go to school, so we have more part-time students. But right now, our FTE, boy, those 190,000 students are going to school full-time. I have the numbers, not in my head.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Representative Huckabee.
Mr. Chairman, if I could go back to the quick start.
Certainly.
I think all of us at this table are hoping and praying that this economy will continue to grow and at some point really take off. And Quick Start has always been one of our hallmark programs in terms of economic development and job creation. This may be a 2012 question, but I'm concerned that we're not getting to the point that in terms of funding that we can't be nimble and responsive to economic development opportunities. So that's probably 2012 question. Are you getting concerned that the level of funding we have a Quick Start may drive us to the wall at some point?
We have been hard pressed to meet the demand. Very aware of that. It's amazing. The great good fortune that we've had in the number of companies that have in fact located here, but because of the size of Kia and the size of the supplier companies that have located here, we are currently training more Quick Start trainees than we've ever done in our history with a much reduced budget. Over time, it will be very difficult for us to sustain, even under our contract training model that we typically have. And for a mega project to hit us, we would all hope happens. For us to meet that demand under these current budget levels, we about hit the wall. And we will take an additional reduction as well, which we'll talk about as well. We think we can manage it, but if we get more big projects, it will stretch us further.
I think that's an excellent question. I think all of us agree on Quick Start. This may have made Representative Collins' point, but sometimes just across the board doesn't necessarily have to make sense. And I don't think I'd hold out a lot of hope that maybe we're going to cut you in 12 on that one. Maybe this committee can do something about that. Any questions? Yes, sir, certainly.
Mr. Commissioner, again, this is moving forward to 2012, and some of the decisions we'll make concerning the HOPE grant to technical colleges. There are changes that are inevitable. Can you give us, of course, all cuts are painful and have effects all along the way. Can you give us an idea of what you can tolerate and not tolerate as far as the Hope grant is concerned at technical colleges.
It will be a real challenge to tolerate any shift that it will bring to our students, particularly on the Hope grant. If, from a policy standpoint, I would have to say, while we're not comfortable with any shift, we know we have to step up to the plate and be full participants as they become. I think those students that come back to the technical college with a four-year college degree currently are eligible to get Hope grant. That's one group that I think we could look at as perhaps not being as not worthy, but not being as open to a Hope grant as perhaps some of the best. The other possibilities that I think we have to look at, but it creates other funding challenges. From a policy standpoint, I personally believe that paying Hope grant or Hope scholarship for students that are getting learning support. We have a high school diploma that cannot do college level work and currently can qualify for scholarship for Hope paying a big average or below TCC at our college. The Hope grant, I think we have to question whether that's the appropriate expenditure of Hope dollars. But I will say this, for those learning support students that show up on our staff, if we're not going to charge them tuition, or if we do charge them tuition, how those funds come for us to be able to provide that learning support is a big question in my mind. Philosophically, I don't think we ought to pay how we in the university system will figure out how to provide that learning support without some funding is a big challenge. To ask parents to pay for learning support for students attending our colleges in order to do college level work without that level of some hope and grant support can be a challenge. So for us to do the learning support, where that money comes from, for me, but philosophically, I don't think it's the right thing to do, to use Hope dollars for the students that need to be.
That's a follow-up. I can follow up on that. I would just follow up the commission on that. Can you quantify the amount of learning support that's done for Hope scholarships?
I'm not sure what the student finance can probably get you the accurate number between both our systems, but I believe in Hope grant dollars last year, we received about $15 million for students that were getting learning support. And that's interesting. But to take that $15 million out of our mix to be able to provide that learning support to those students in need, I don't know where you backfill that.
Got that too.
Charlie Smith's idea. Charge back the counties.
Paper bag. Commissioner, you can continue, or does that pretty much wrap up the?
Pretty much wraps up. Glad to answer any questions.
Members of the committee, Assistant Commissioner, do you have anything to add? Okay. Members of the committee, any questions for the Commissioner? Thank you, and thank you for the job you guys do. All right, members of the committee, we have exhausted the two that I had asked to come here. Anything further for the good of this committee? What I'm going to suggest that we do is begin to take a look at this. I'll get the committee together again, and we can. The chairman has asked us to move this fairly expeditiously because it doesn't seem to be a lot of controversy here. I think there's a couple little things. Please come to me if you've got anything specific that you think we ought to really deal with here. If we have to get this committee together again, if I get a lot of that, I'll put us right back together. If not, we may just make a recommendation towards the chairman on this one. So let me know if there begins to be a lot of concern on the FY11, then I'll parcel it back out to the members of the committee. But otherwise, I think we'll move this one pretty quickly. Any further? Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.